Hi, this is Kenny Albert. You're listening to the Broadway Hat Podcast with your host, Kyle Hall, the #1 podcast for all things Rangers hockey.
Welcome back to the Broadway Hat Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Hall, and what a weird week for the New York Rangers. They played 3 games on the road, all of them going to OT. First with an OT win in Montreal, a game where for a moment you thought the Rangers weren't going to come out and win that game, a team that you need to beat. But finally, the Rangers were able to climb back. And actually, they never had a lead in that game. They just always came back and tied it. They win an OT there, and then they go into Buffalo, and they get a huge win in Buffalo, 2-1. With Igor probably played the best game in a very long time. Buffalo. He actually looked very good in Montreal's too. So Igor has now won 4 of his last 5 starts, and maybe the Boston game, he had 1 or 2 goals there that you'd want back, if that. But I think Igor's played better as of late. He had the win there against LA where he gave just the 2 goals. And that was after the Washington game where obviously he got peppered for 6 goals there. So he had a good bounce back game against LA, and then he had a good win against Philly in overtime there. And then, he had lost in Boston, but they picked up the 2 wins here in overtime, and then over the shootout against Montreal, and then OT against Buffalo. But maybe this is the corner he's going to turn, and the Rangers need him. The Rangers need last year's Igor Shesterkin in the playoffs if they want to have any shot coming out of the East against some of these powerhouse teams. So let's hope this gets Igor's confidence going. And, Sunday night, the Penguin game, Saturday night against the Penguins, just a game where the effort I don't know if the effort wasn't there, just the energy wasn't there. And it wasn't until the giant hit by Jacob Trouba kind of woke the team up. And it seems like that's happened a couple times where Trouba's had to step up and make some kind of a hit or get into a fight to get the team going. And obviously, as the captain, he knows what the team needs. And he is the prototypical clean hitter. And I know my mentions were going yesterday with Penguins fans saying he's at it again, but that was a clean hit. He has that thing down to a science. He is the best open ice hitter in the NHL. Incredible. Just the momentum that he can take in a game just from the one hit. And so he got the Rangers going. Chris Kreider ties it up, and unfortunately, the Rangers lose an OT there after Panarin takes a bad penalty to start the overtime off. But you get 5 out of your 6 points. I'm not counting the Boston game as part of this road trip because they had the 5 games off in between. But you get 5 out of 6 points on the road trip. All of them went to overtime. Could have almost lost the Montreal game. The Buffalo game could have gone back and forth. Pittsburgh, you're outplayed for most of the game. So it wasn't the best of weeks for the Rangers, but they got it done. And right now, you're sitting at 10 points behind the first place, but this week is really, really important because you play the Penguins 2 more times after they played this last weekend, which is the dumbest thing in NHL scheduling, playing a team 3 times in, 8 days, which is ridiculous. Not even 3 times in a week because they play on Saturday. So the Penguins right now, they're just 6 points behind the Rangers. So the Rangers went 4-5-1 the last 10 games, and you now just have a 6-point lead on the Pittsburgh Penguins, and you play them twice, 2 losses, and you are looking at a wild card spot right now for the Rangers after, you were thinking maybe the Rangers would climb into a second spot as the Devils and Carolina have just taken off, and the Rangers right now have to figure it out. I know there's a learning curve still, and we're starting to see Patrick Kane settle in even more now. He's at 3 points in his last 3 games. I think Gerard Gallant now just has to figure these lines out. He's been shuffling and moving around. He's trying to find the right combos, and that's going to take time. And I think Ranger fans need to be a little patient with it, but also I think there's a need for it to get going fast because there are teams chasing the Islanders just 8 points back on them now. There's teams on their heels. And as much talent as this Rangers team has, if they don't gel together, they're not going to play well together. So you see an all-star teams and like this, get together, you see all the talent in the world, but they just can't put it down the ice. Heck, if you're a Ranger fan from the early 2000s, late 90s, we saw this every year with superstars on the ice, and the Rangers would buy the best team in hockey, and they couldn't get it done because they couldn't gel. So hopefully that's not the case, and hopefully the Rangers get it figured out. Then they're going to have to because, like I said, a couple losses here against the Penguins, and they're in a bad spot. And you have another 2 tough game against Washington as well. On Tuesday, a team the Rangers just got beaten up by a couple of games ago down in Washington. So the Rangers got to figure out there, and then they have another game against Nashville. So a couple games at home here where the Rangers need to have some wins. Another guy I want to talk about Kane heating back up, Igor playing better. Mikola has been fantastic filling in for Ryan Lindgren. And another question is, why is Ryan Lindgren not on LTIR? Like, what is the hold up there? He's been out for 7 games. I'm not sure why the Rangers haven't moved him there to save maybe a little bit of cap space for the end of the year for a call-up or what. I don't know what the deal is there, but whatever. But McCullough's been great. I think he's played really well with Fox, really filled in well in the first line, the first pairing. And he's a guy who I think has gotten more and more confidence, gained more and more confidence from this Rangers coaching staff come the end of the year. I think, obviously Ben Harper's going to be moved out of the lineup once Ryan Lindgren comes. I think McCullough's done a great job killing penalties. He's going to be one of their big penalty killers on the stretch, and I've been really impressed by him. And he had some mixed reviews coming into the trade, coming out of the trade, where some St. Louis people were saying, oh, he's not that great. He's got holes in his game, blah, blah. He reaches, whatever. I think he's been really good. I think he's been a great addition. I think Tarasenko's played his butt off, too. Maybe not getting some of the results, but I think he's played really well, Tarasenko. He showed some fire yesterday or Saturday against Pittsburgh when the team was down, too. But, some guys just didn't show any emotion. The fourth line played great. I thought Tarasenko played good. And then I thought McCullough played really good. And then obviously Trouba was in there for the big hit. But and I thought Halak played really well in that, too. But I've been really impressed by him. I think he's been a great addition to this team. And, I think Chris Drury might have found finally that guy who's going to play in that third pairing, maybe for the future with the Rangers, play with Braden Schneider. I think they make a good duo down there. So, big week for the Rangers. Big week. And 16 games left in the season now, so it's a sprint to the finish. It's going to be interesting. There's a lot of tough games coming up. Other than the Pittsburgh games coming up, you still have games against Carolina next week. Tuesday, Thursday next week, you play back-to-back, a home and home against Carolina. Then you go into New Jersey one more time. You got Tampa one more time. You got Toronto one more time. Buffalo twice, I think, coming up here again. So, dangerous team there in Buffalo. But, yeah, there's a lot of hockey left to be played, and this is far from over to see where the Rangers will end up from a playoff seeding standpoint. And who knows? Maybe they play the Devils. Maybe they play Carolina. Maybe they get in a wild card. Who the heck knows what the Rangers are going to do? But all I know is that Igor Shesterkin needs to keep this play up if they want to do anything come playoff time. This week we have a great guest. We're joined by former New York Rangers defenseman Cory Cross, who joins the show. Cory tells some great stories from his 12-year NHL career. But before we sit down to an interview with Cory, I do want to tell you about our sponsors, our new sponsors over at Kanzuri. Fellas, have you ever wished that you were a little bit taller? Maybe you match on Tinder, and her profile says must be 6 feet, and you are not 6 feet. Maybe your date wants to wear heels, and they just can't because you're not tall enough. Well, those short kings, we've got you covered. Today's sponsor, Kanzuri, has got you all set. They make shoes that make you up to 2.8 inches taller without anyone noticing. Look, girls get heels, makeup, push-up bras, you name it. We get nothing. So why can't men get a little boost in their confidence as well? We're all the same height laying down anyway, if you know what I mean. For a limited time only, listeners can get an extra 15% off when you use the code Broadway at Kanzuri.com. The site already has a 30% off sale running, so with the code, you'll get an extra 15% off. That's 45% off your entire order. It's practically free. So go on there, support the show, and check it out at Konzuri.com. Use the code Broadway. Listen, for anyone who's looking for a couple extra inches here, go on there, check it out. They have go check out their product. I mean, they have some great shoes on there. And not only do they make you 2.8 inches taller, they're also incredibly stylish and comfortable. They're not just old man Velcro shoes that you see on Amazon, people trying to sell you these things. You'll actually get compliments to these shoes. They make you look taller. They also make you look a lot cooler, smart, casual, sporty, you name it. They have it for every occasion. The height insoles are actually built into the shoe, so no one can even tell that you're hiding your secret height boost. The brand is also hidden on their shoes, and so is the packaging, so it's the ultimate height hack. Don't live life short, live life to the fullest. Go check out Konzuri.com. Make sure you use our code Broadway to save up to 15% today. All right, we're now joined by a very special guest, 12-year NHL pro, former New York Ranger defenseman, Cory Cross. Thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me, Kyle.
So first off, I got to get way back into your growing up in Alberta. What was your favorite team growing up?
You know what? I hate to tell you. I hate to say this. I was a huge New York Islander fan.
There's a lot of people from Alberta that have had on the show that say the Islanders.
You know what? I had a Mike Bossy Titan. Remember those? I don't know. You're probably way too young, but I had a Mike Bossy Titan stick, and I loved that stick. And it was great on the road hockey. It was great on ice hockey. It just never broke, right? And
So the 2x4.
I love Mike Bossy. He was my favorite player. And then Brian Trottier, Dennis Potvin, like I just loved that team, and always pretending I was Mike Bossy. And I was a forward back when I was younger. So I love to be the goal scorer like Mike Bossy. Yeah.
So man, the Battle of Alberta back in the day, you didn't care at all. You were just sitting there watching. You rooted for the Isles in those cups, huh?
Yeah, so I loved it when the Islanders, and then when the Islanders lost to the Oilers, I grew up 2 hours from Edmonton, and my dad and my brothers were big Oiler fans, but so I hated the Oilers because they beat my team, right? And so and then when the Flames got to be, a powerhouse as well, I became a Flames fan. So I was always cheering against the Oilers. Whoever could beat the Oilers, I was happy.
You went the U Sport route, which is, not current, a route you don't see very often these days either. What led to that going to University of Alberta?
Well, I have a pretty unique story. I don't know if you know my past or not, but I grew up in a small town called Lloydminster. It's like 10,000 people, right in the smack dab of Alberta, Saskatchewan, and I played my minor hockey there till I was done my midget hockey, and I was 17. My parents had me on a scholarship program, given money and kind of like they call it TFSA up here in Canada, but it was a tax thing, and you could put your money into a scholarship fund. And so literally I quit hockey. I quit hockey after I was done midget. I had one Western League tryout. The junior A team in Lloyd wanted me to come play for them, but I had this money sitting there and I had to use it. So I just decided to move to Edmonton with a couple of my buddies, moved in with them, and really was just going to concentrate on school at that point. I took an activity course, and these activity courses, there's basketball, volleyball, but I took ice hockey because I thought I'd miss playing. So took this class and ended up the coach of the Golden Bears, the U of A Golden Bears, was the instructor of the class. And as the class was progressing through September, I was really missing hockey, and I approached him and I said, I'd love to play somewhere. Do you know of any place I could play? And he gave me some names of junior A teams. The problem is they didn't have a vehicle. I lived right across the street from campus, and these junior A teams were good 45 minutes away drive from where I lived, and it just wasn't possible for me to play there. So he gave me a junior B name. I called the coach and asked him if I could come and try out for his team, and he said yeah, and he got one of the players to pick me up, and went to the first tryout, and it was pretty obvious I was going to make the team. I was a pretty good player, but I went back home, and my roommate had a car, and he was a good hockey player too, and he was kind of same thing, was just going to quit. So let's go play on this junior B team. So him and I did, and we had an unbelievable junior B team. We joined these guys who all grew up together in South Edmonton. We were kind of the outside guys coming in, and we had a very successful year. And then the next year, the coach asked me to try out for the Golden Bears, and I made it.
Wait, tell you what, there you go, kids. Play well in gym class, and you can
exactly.
get seen by a college coach.
I was so lucky, and the timing was just perfect. It was just, you got to have luck, you got to have timing, and I was just in the right place at the right time, and yeah, the rest is history. And
you won a national championship there too, right?
Yeah, we had a successful program. Like University of Alberta is the top school in Canada for hockey. I don't know how many national championships they've won and Canadian Western championships, but they're always the best, one of the best. And so I didn't expect making the team. I made it as an eighth defenseman my first year, and we went to nationals. I hardly played that year. They had a real veteran defense, and just mainly watched and practiced with the team. And then we lost in the final that year. And then the next year I made the team. I made it as a top four. I was top four defenseman in the second year. And we ended up winning the national championship. And and I got drafted by Tampa, and it was a real successful year.
Yeah, the first overall pick in the 1992 supplemental draft. I mean, you can go around saying number one pick, right?
Yeah, I tell a lot of people that I had when I played in Germany, they're like, "Oh, you get drafted, Cory." I'm like, "Yeah, first overall." And they're like, "What?" They had no idea. Like, the supplemental draft was expired there a couple years after I got picked. Nobody really knew about it after a while.
You see Tampa, you kind of do a double take, like, oh, was that the first pick of the draft? Tampa was struggling so much back then that it could have been.
That was the first year Tampa drafted. So Roman Hamrlik and I were their two first picks.
That's it. The pillars of the organization.
Yeah, at that point, Roman was a great player, and they had a great pick there.
So you make your NHL debut there with Tampa in 1994 in April, and I looked up the game you played against the Penguins, and Mario Lemieux almost killed Kerry Fraser in that game.
Yeah, he did. You know what? I had forgotten about. I remember being on the ice. I remember warm-ups and looking across the ice and like, holy crap! Like, who am I? Like, look at the guys I'm playing against. Like, they were just stacked, that team, and I was partnered with a guy named Sean Chambers, and we had to play against Francis, Mullen, and Yager. And I was like, I was pretty scared, really nervous. And literally I the first shift of the game, I smoked Joe Mullen. Like, he got the puck and I came across on the right side of me. I came across and it was a great open ice hit. Probably maybe one of the best open ice hits I've ever had. So I wasn't a big open ice hitter. And that was my first shift. And I actually didn't remember that until my dad gave me an old VHS tape of it, but over COVID, and my son and I were watching. I couldn't believe it. I was like, man, I don't even remember that, but I do remember my second shift because I was -1 because I got stuck out there with Lemieux and Stevens and Murphy, and they were tic-tac-toe behind the back plays and in the net. And so after 2 shifts, I had a big hit, and I was -1. So,
I mean, it's pretty good. I mean, that's pretty good though. Just -1 for the that team. That's not bad. That's not bad.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, I was watching. I looked it up because I was looking at the game and I saw Lemieux had 20-something penalty minutes. I was like, what the heck did he do in this game? And I YouTubed it, and sure enough, I see him throwing sticks and
he was
throwing his stick and throwing his gloves like Kerry Fraser.
I'd forgotten about that, but he was going pretty crazy.
So you spent 5 years down there in Tampa, and those were tough years. Obviously, there's an expansion team, a lot of ownership issues going on. So what was that experience for a player, kind of with all the uncertainty around the owners and around the franchise?
Well, to be honest with you, like we, for being an expansion team, we had a pretty solid team, and in '96 we actually made the playoffs that year, and after Christmas, I think we were the first or second best team in the league. We just really connected we had a really close knit group in the locker room, and we had some young guys, Jason Weimer, Chris Gratton, and Brian Bellows were our line, and they were fantastic. And a guy named Brian Bradley, who was just a wizard on the ice back then. And we had Darren Pupa. Darren Pupa was unbelievable that year. He was a Vezina Trophy finalist that year, and whenever he played, we won. And unfortunately, he had a bad back; he couldn't play every game. But so we had a real successful that year. We took the Flyers to 6 games that year, and it was a kill or be killed series. I don't think I played a tougher series the rest of my career other than that one. It was unbelievable. I think it was a big reason why they didn't go on to win the Stanley Cup, because we beat the crap out of them so bad. They lost the next round to Florida. And then and seeing the fans, like game 6, we had 26,000 fans at the rink, and people were lined up, all the way down. We probably had probably 200 meters from the back door to our cars, and they had to get fencing to keep the people back so we could actually get to our vehicles. And the people were just going crazy at that time. And so that really turned it really made a lot of people hockey fans that year. The next year we lost. We were 2 points out of making playoffs, and then things fell apart. They sold the team to an insurance guy, and they started making some trades and getting rid of guys, and coach got fired, and it just started just going down. And unfortunately, it was tough to play in those couple of years. We were last place in the league, and there was just a turnstile of guys coming in and out of Tampa, and unfortunately couldn't really get any traction until they sold the team again, and then they turned the team around.
So it's no surprise to you seeing, because they have an unbelievable fan base now. Obviously, they've had great success for the past decade down there, but the fans base down there is unbelievable down there in Tampa now.
It is. I've been to a couple of games since I retired, and the fan experience is one of the best in the league. I think it's just awesome. And you go down there and you lightning everywhere. When I played, it was Bucks. The Buccaneers were everything, right? The football was everything. Mm-hmm. The Florida State, all that. It was just all football. And now hockey's right up there with it. So it's cool to see.
So you go from Tampa, you get traded to Toronto. I mean, what a market switch, huh?
That was a huge switch. I think in the first month in Toronto, I probably got recognized more in that first month than I did in 5 years in Tampa. It was, I was excited. I was excited to go to a franchise, Original Six franchise. We had 2 tough years in Tampa. I was excited to go to Toronto. I remember being on the plane, sad to leave all my friends and all that in Tampa. But when I got on a plane, I'm like, I'm going to be playing on Hockey Night in Canada tomorrow in Montreal for the game opener, or for the season opener. And it was pretty exciting. And putting the Leaf jersey on was something I'll never forget.
I got to ask about Pat Quinn. Any good stories from him?
I love Pat. I love playing for Pat. And Pat traded for me because he was the GM of the World Championship team back in 97 and 98. And I played well back. I had a couple of good tournaments. And so he traded for me. And so he had a lot of confidence in me when I came into town, and real players coach. But he was pretty funny. He had this bad habit of, he had a whiteboard marker, and he had a real bad habit of taking the lid off the whiteboard marker and then trying to stick it on the back of it. You can stick it on there and then write and then put off. Well, he'd be talking, and he'd always be playing with his marker, with the lid and the marker. And he had these huge hands. It's like such big hands. And he'd always drop his marker. He'd drop the lid, and he would try to pick it up, but he had really bad hips back then, and he couldn't pick it up. And the assistant coach would have to pick it up for him. And we would be dying laughing. All the guys would bite their tongues. And he had a bad habit of wiping the board off with his hand instead of using a towel. And then he would put his hand on his face. Well, he'd always get marker on his face as well. And we'd all be nudging each other. Here it comes. He'd turn around, he had a marker on his face. So as a coach, I took that. I'm like, that'll never happen to me. And I literally I take a skate lace and I tie it onto my board, and I tie it onto an end of a towel. And that was one thing I learned from him as a coach.
It's the takeaway you had from all those Hall of Fame coach. Don't expo marker yourself in the face.
Yeah, exactly. But he was a good man. Sad to see him pass away. And I talked to him a few times after he retired, and he was always there to talk. And just a real good man, and everybody loved playing for him.
So you also had a teammate there, Ty Domi, who is, fans love him wherever he goes, and obviously just brings so much energy to the game. And I think he's got the most fights ever in NHL history. But what was it like having him as a teammate?
Yeah, Ty was always there for the team. He, if there was something that had to be done, fighting wise, he was the guy to step up. And he loved the limelight. He loved being in Toronto and being in Hockey Night in Canada, and being from around there. People loved Ty, and he rose at every occasion that he could. And and show himself on TV, he would do it. And he created a lot of holes for Mats and all those goal scorers to do what they had to do.
So I'm Matt Sundin. I think probably one of the most underrated players of his era. Just a guy who kind of goes on the radar with those other superstars.
Yeah, 100%. Nobody, like, when I played against Mats, I knew he was good, but I didn't. To me, he wasn't up to with the Lemieux, the Lindrosses, but when I started playing with him, I was like, holy, like, this guy's phenomenal. And him being in the Hall of Fame, just shows how good he was. And unfortunately, he never got the opportunity to get a Stanley Cup, but I mean, he carried our team many nights. It was the match show, and he was a great captain. He knew how to read our room. We had a lot of characters, Ty being one, Darcy Tucker being one. We had quiet guys like Al McCauley and Cujo and myself, and then he had Gary Roberts, and then we had a lot of Russian guys on our team. And Matt's just knew how to just keep everybody on the same page. And with Pat and Pat's coaching style, Pat was just like, drop the puck and let's go. We didn't have any systems. And Matt's loved playing like that. And he kept everybody on the right path for sure.
Between Domi and Tucker, could anyone get another award in that locker room, or at least on the blue line during warmups?
Not too many. Glenn Healy is the only guy who could outspeak those two. But yeah, those guys were they were never quiet.
2001 playoffs. You scored the game-winning goal in OT against Ottawa at the Air Canada Center. It had to be a real moment. What was you like? What is that feeling like? Just basically skating out the center ice there and having all your teammates mob you.
Well, yeah, there's two things I miss. Two things I miss in hockey. The first thing I miss is when you first step on the ice to start the game. You'll never feel that high ever again in your life. And the other thing I miss is scoring a goal. So I didn't score many goals, and I scored that one, and I don't think I could ever feel the emotion I felt that night. It was the most exciting thing I've ever done. We were not favored to beat Ottawa that year, but we had a much tougher team. And once the playoffs came, well, we just grinded them down. And Shane Corson checked Yashin to the ground, and we were up 2-0. Went to Ottawa, beat them the first two games, and went back to Toronto, and we were up 2-0 that game. And they scored 2 goals in the last 2 minutes to tie it up. And we were just sitting in the dressing room. We're kind of looking like, oh crap, did we wake these guys up, right? And I just happened to be in the right place at the right time, and I just pretty much closed my eyes and just shot. And I always shoot in that spot, so you practice a shot over and over again. You just automatically do it, and it just hit it right. And fortunately, it went in. And I just remember Brian McCabe actually, like, body, just full side body swipe, just smoked me. I was ready to go do the whole lap around the rink, but he didn't let me go 5 feet.
You missed the next game due to a lower body injury from the celebration.
Oh yeah, I was in the bottom of the pile. I was just turtled in the bottom of the pile.
And unfortunately, I think that's the furthest the Leafs have gone since that game, since you guys went to the conference finals that season.
Yeah, well, we went to the semis. Yeah, we the next year we went to the semifinals against Carolina.
Yeah, so that's, and then they have they won a playoff series since then? I don't know if they have, right? Is that the last one?
They've won one. They've won some playoffs. They've won first round playoff series, but they haven't gone.
They haven't gone second. Yeah.
That was they haven't gone as far as we went. The next year, I actually thought we had a chance. We had a really good chance to win the Stanley Cup. We had a better team. It was our best team we had, and we just got into a whole bunch of injuries, like 7-8 starters out of the lineup, and we had so many American League guys, and then other guys, like a guy like Al McCauley, who was our fourth line center. He came up and played in our first line, and yeah, we just We just couldn't get beat. But we lost. We beat the Islanders in 7, Ottawa in 7, and then we faced Carolina, and we just kind of ran out of gas. Lost them in 6.
Carolina had that. They had that magical season there. That run with was it Cam Ward, right? Was it he had the run there as the goalie?
No,
was
that
Urbe?
was a few years after.
Or was that Urbe? Yeah, it's Urbe's. Yeah,
Carter's Urbe.
Him with those white pillow pads he had on.
Oh, he just stoned us. He stoned us.
There's no way those pads were legal. Let me tell you, there's no way. Those things are huge.
Not a chance. Yeah.
And Glenn Healy has come on the show and said that he's had illegal pads, but Urbe's were bigger. They were huge.
Yeah, 100%. They were up to his neck. I mean, they were massive. But yeah, we just we ran out of gas, and they ended up beating us in 6 games, and yeah.
Have you gone back to Toronto for any games? Or they put you in the alumni? You know, they do like a highlight for you with that goal on the jumbotron, or no?
No, I've been to a few games, but no highlights.
I was gonna say you gotta get that spotlight. If you had people over your house, you should just have that on your TV in the background. Like, oh, I'm sorry, that's just randomly on there. I'm sorry.
Just on repeat. Hey.
Yeah, sorry, it's crazy.
Well, I have one highlight on the YouTube, and that's that goal.
That's not bad. It's not bad. Anytime any kids go on there, look you up. That's a pretty good one to watch.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So after your time at the Leafs, you signed with the Rangers. So what led to that signing with the Rangers?
Well, I wanted to re-sign with Toronto. I got into a lot of injury troubles when I was in Toronto, so I was kind of in and out of the lineup for the last 2 years, and my contract ran out. And I think they just wanted a guy who would be a little healthier. So they went out and I can't remember who they signed, but they signed a couple other guys. So I was a free agent, and my agent couldn't really find a decent, what we thought was a decent contract. And I was just ready to sit out and just train and hopefully somebody would come after training camp and sign me, because that was kind of what happened back in the day. Is they see who they got for draftees and whatnot, and then they come knocking on free agent doors again and see if you want to play. Unfortunately, nothing really happened, and it took till December for the Rangers got a bunch of defensemen got hurt that year, and I was in Toronto skating with the University of Toronto hockey team. And I was in unbelievable shape. I remember it was actually good for my career at that point. I had 4 extra months to not do anything, and I was feeling so good and so healthy when the Rangers signed me. It was the first time in my career that I had felt so good, and they signed me, and I went to Hartford for a couple of games, and then they called me right up to the Rangers after that.
And that year, the 2022-23 season was Brian Trottier's only season as a Rangers head coach, and that team was stacked, just unbelievable talent, Hall of Famers up and down the lineup, and unfortunately, they just couldn't win. But you being an Islander fan growing up, that had to be a dream seeing Brian Trottier there behind the bench.
Oh, he was one of my heroes, and so I was super excited. And Trotz is an unbelievable guy, like just a great guy, and that team. I don't know. There's not too many personalities that could coach that team. We had so many, like you said, superstars, ex-captains, on that team that it would have taken a guy, maybe like a Pat Quinn status, to come in and to coach that team. Brian was a hell of a guy, but he couldn't get that team to get motivated. I
think that was their second year there. I think that's when he started bringing everyone in. So let me just read a couple of these names out there so everyone can hear who was on this team that you were in the locker room with: Mark Messier, Brian Leach, Pavel Bure, Eric Lindros. Those are Hall of Famers off the top.
Yeah.
Then you have Mike Richter, obviously, who got hurt that year though in the lineup, but Mike Dunham actually had a good year. Tom Pody, our guy Darius Kasparaitis, Peter Nedved. I mean, unreal talent.
Well, Malakoff
was
he was an unbelievable player. Like when he wanted to play, there wasn't a better defenseman in the league. We had a really good team. Pav was hurt. He didn't play very much that year. He had a bad knee. And Leachy, he was hurt as well. He finally came and he played after a little while, but he was hurt. Ricky, he was hurt as
He
well.
got hurt
So,
with the head. Yeah, that was his real final year.
yeah. So a lot of injury problems, and then, but we still had an unbelievable team. We should have done way better than we did, for sure.
Any good Mark Messier stories?
Oh yeah, you know what, not being an Oiler fan though, I grew up.
Did you let him know that? Did you let him know that when you saw him?
I don't know if I ever did, but
he saw a bird on the roster. He goes, "Oh, he must have been a fan of mine."
But I obviously saw a lot of Mark Messier play. My best friend is a huge Mark Messier fan, and being guys in a university house, our decoration was hockey posters, and so we had a Mark Messier hockey poster on our wall for 4 years. So I stare at Mark Messier's face like forever, and so I get a chance to play there. My best friend is calling me that day. I'm booking my ticket and I'll be there. And so he comes, and you always say you never want to meet your hero. Sometimes you get disappointed meeting your heroes. Well, it was a really funny story. So he flew in with another buddy of mine from Florida, and so we go to the practice rink, and they're watching practice, and then after the practice, I invite them in to give them the tour of the dressing room, right? And just a great facility the Rangers had. Nobody had a facility like that until the Rangers did. And so we're walking around the facility, and we go into the training room. And just as we're walking in the training room, Mess was getting massaged, and he steps off the training bed, and he's naked. And I'm like, "Hey, Mess, this is my buddy Jody." And I just looked at Jody, and there's his hero, buck naked. and I've elaborated that story a few times, and yeah, let's just say Jody was looking him up and down while he was shaking his hand.
A little different than the poster.
So that's my Mark Messier story. I like sharing, but him being in the locker room, he would give the death stare to some guys who were not playing well, and I was like, holy shit, like thank God he's not looking at me, right? And he had a real command of the dressing room, for sure.
Who was your D partner while you were there?
Casper.
Was Casper? Okay, yeah.
He's
another one. He's something else. He's and I had him on. I asked him a question. I didn't want to ask it, but I had to ask him. I'm like, "Do you ever consider yourself a dirty player?" And he goes, "No, I was never dirty." Yeah. He's like, "I just hit hard." I'm like, "Okay, that's fine."
He's so funny. He is so funny. So so the first time we're partnered together, he's like, "Hey, Crosser, I love to get hit." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "I love hit. I love to get hit." I'm like, "Okay." He goes, "When they dump the puck in, I'll go get it." Like, okay, no problem. He goes, "I'll take the hit and I'll just bump it to you. You get it, you break it out." And it worked like unbelievable. And he just loved it. He just loved that. And he was -11 when I got there. And when I got traded, he was +1. And I think I was +10, +9 or 10. He was probably the best defensive partner I've ever played with. Just the chemistry we had, the two of us. And he was so sad when I got traded. He's like, "What?" Because he had turned his year around. Just him and I with the chemistry we had.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He's a good guy. But he's a madman though. He still wants to play. He's crazy.
Is that right?
Yeah, he said he still plays. He still picks it up. He goes down to the rink all the time and plays with it. He finds what do you say? He doesn't play senior hockey. He wants to play with the younger guys because he wants to keep up.
Well, I could see him doing it. He's nuts.
And he's still throwing the body around. I had a guy on. He plays in the South Florida 3-on-3 league, and he said Casper still throws the body around. Still is locking guys up the blue line illegally. Can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, so the Rangers trade you to Edmonton with Radek Dvorak, a guy who I love too. He was great with the Rangers. But you get to Edmonton. So I guess, were you upset about that trade? Did it come out of nowhere? What happened there?
Yeah, I was surprised because I hadn't been playing well. Like maybe some of the best hockey I played in my career was in New York. And I really hadn't even thought about the trade deadline. And I got dressed for practice that morning, and I was walking out to the ice, and Slats grabbed me. He's like, "Hey, come in my office," and he pulls me into the stick room where we cut our sticks. And he's like, "I'm sending you home," and I'm like, "What?" Like, he goes, "Yeah, you're going home," and I was like, kind of surprised by it. I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "No, I traded to Edmonton." And I was like, "Oh, you did?" And yeah, I was surprised. I was upset. I love being in New York because MSG has been my favorite rink. I don't know if I ever had a real bad game there. Some people might disagree, but I always felt good there. And but yeah, Slats goes, "Yeah, we wanted to get Anson Carter, and they wanted you and Devo, and so that was the trade." And I was an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. I said, "Well, maybe we can work out a deal next year." And he goes, "Yeah, let's chat after the season's over." And so yeah, got the call from the Oilers, and they're like, "Yeah, we got a flight for you in like an hour and a half." And I'm like, "An hour and a half?" Maybe it was 2.5 hours, but it was very little time. And I'm like, "Man, like I got all my belongings." I stayed in a hotel in White Plains, and I'm like, I gotta get my belongings. I gotta organize some things before I leave. And they're like, "Well, do what you can." And it was a mad dash to the hotel, threw a bunch of things. Fortunately they had a storage area there, and I threw a bunch of stuff in the storage area, got on the plane, and I was gone. Yeah.
That's crazy. And now, obviously, trade deadline happening now. You hear all these stories with these guys. Oh, like Patrick Kane took an extra day to come to New York, but you can't just drop everything in your life to run away. To jump on something. You see some of these guys get traded at noon. They're in the lineup by 7 p.m. It's crazy.
Yeah, 100%. I know. I have a crazy. I mean, and I got traded another time at the deadline. And that was when I was in Pittsburgh, and my daughter had been born on the 7th, and I got traded on the 9th. And my wife and daughter were still in the hospital, and I was beside them, and just visiting. And I got the call from Craig Patrick saying that I've been traded to Detroit, and I was in the hospital. And Detroit wanted me on a flight in same thing, a couple hours. I'm like, "Well, my wife's still in the hospital. Can I get her at least home later today, and then get a later flight?" So I flew out that night. Yeah.
Jeez. That's cold blooded by Craig Patrick. Trading a guy whose wife's in the hospital.
Yeah, there's it's like, "You're coming now, and drop everything you have." And yeah, sometimes
Did you tell Slats that you weren't an Oilers fan, that you don't want to go home, that you want to stay?
Well, I knew this, but when he was the GM of the Oilers, he was trying to trade me from Tampa for years. He was trying to get me back to Edmonton. And I knew that. My agent, who had lots of he was an Edmonton agent, and he had lots of connections there. And he's like, they've been trying to get you for years, but finally came around.
So what happened in the offseason? Did you try to get back to New York, or I know you resigned?
No, I went to Edmonton. It was funny because I went to, being from that area, and I went there, and the guys in the dressing room they were unreal. It was a lot of fun. It was a young team. They welcomed me with open arms, and I just kept playing well, finishing the year there. And we had made the playoffs. We lost to Dallas in 6, but I just really enjoyed it. I enjoyed my family being close by, and they came to me with an offer, and I just took it.
Now, did you find it tough playing close to home? Did you have a lot of ticket requests and everything, or was it kind of still far enough where it wasn't like they're in your hometown?
Yeah, they were far enough, and my dad hated coming to the games. He wanted to sit in his living room and watch the games on TV. He hated the live audience and the people yelling and screaming. So he hardly came to any of the games. Yeah, my family were good about it, and we usually knew enough people in my hometown. There was a lot of season ticket holders. There was like 6 guys that owned the Oilers from my hometown. There was a big group of them that owned the Oilers, and so a bunch of people in Lloyd had season tickets. So we usually could always find find extra tickets, and I did buy a couple of season tickets to go along with my two free ones to make it a lot easier for everybody. So,
I got asked about Pronger. He was there. I think it was your last year there in Edmonton. Any good stories from him? I loved him. It's just his hitting style and everything.
yeah, it's just he was a great player. I mean, his ability to slow the game down was uncanny, like, because he wasn't a real quick player, but his ability to get the puck and slow the whole play down to his level. He just had an uncanny ability to do that, and that was fun. And Craig McTavish, another ex-Ranger, he loved video. We watched so much video, and he loved kind of getting on guys he didn't like. He liked ribbon on the video. And one time he had a Chris Pronger mistake, and he threw that up there, and Prongs like just lit up and pretty much said, "How dare you? How dare you? Don't ever do that again," pretty much. And we never saw another Chris Pronger mistake on video ever again.
How many Corey Cross mistakes were up there?
There was a few. My last year, there was a lot, because he wanted to get rid of me. Him and I didn't see eye to eye that year, and so he put up a few, and I just shake my head. He didn't like. There were some guys he'd get a hard on for, and just like literally crucified them in front of everybody. Which
I've heard that from the guys, that he's a little tough from a coaching standpoint. I heard he's a great teammate, but he was a little tougher when he had coach.
He had his favorites, and the other guys he just didn't care so much for.
So your final year in the NHL, crazy season for you. You start off in Edmonton, and you get traded to Pittsburgh. Was that a welcome change for you, or is that?
Yeah, I was hoping it wasn't Pittsburgh. They were struggling. They had they're the worst placed team. But whatever. I packed my bags up and left. And when I got to Pittsburgh, I played a couple games. I didn't play very well there. Why you retire or why you don't play, you just lose the kind of love of the game. Mm-hmm. And I kind of lost the love of the game in Edmonton. Mac T probably being one of the reasons that sucked the life out of me. And I was just kind of done, and already looking forward to the end of my career. What can I do in my end of my career? The lockout was the year before that, and I had a lot of back problems, and I was just sick of being hurt. And but I went to Pittsburgh and played a couple of games, didn't play very well, but I was excited being on a new team. And I remember asking one of the veteran guys, I'm like, "Oh, this is, I'm glad to be here." He's like, "Oh yeah, I'll give you a week." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, this is terrible here, terrible." And I was like, "Oh," so my excitement quickly faded. They had a real young team. Michel Therrien was the coach, and he wanted to play the young guys, which I don't blame him. We were last play, we weren't going anywhere. So, the veteran guys, he didn't really care what we did or played, or just play the young guys. And everybody was trying to get out of there. At deadline, I think Craig Patrick had a long list of guys to trade. Fortunately, I was one of them. So.
And that was Crosby's rookie year too. So you got to you got to see Crosby's first year there. Except I was only there for 2 months, so I briefly saw what he was going to be capable of. But right away, you could see that he was going to be a superstar. His work ethic was exceptional for being a young kid, and I'm not surprised how his career has turned out. And Pittsburgh had a pretty good run after that, so maybe Therrien had a good idea just to play the young kids. He saw the future there.
Yeah, they had a great core of guys, like Crosby and Fleury and Brooks Orpik, Colby Armstrong, Whitney.
Was Ryan Malone there yet? I think Malone was there.
Yeah, Ryan Malone was there. Yeah, no,
another character.
They had a really good core guys. Michel, I don't think Michel was the guy he wasn't the guy to get him over the top, but they fired him, and then they won the Stanley Cup, when they brought in a new guy.
So then your wife has the baby, you get traded 48 hours later after that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're in Detroit, and you went from the worst team to the best team.
Yeah. Well, I was
That's
so
pretty
excited.
good.
I was so pumped. All of a sudden, I was like, I love hockey again.
You look at the standings, you see 100 points where they were at the time. You're like, oh, all right, good.
Yeah, I'm like, this is my chance. This is my opportunity to win, right? And so I was really excited. Flew to Detroit, and I had played with some of the Detroit guys, Chris Draper, Kirk Maltby, Matthew Dandino. I played with them in 2003 World Championships, so I knew a few of those guys already. So yeah, it was just exciting to be there, and what a team that was. I mean, you go through that team and the Hall of Famers on that team and the talent we had. Yeah, I still can't believe we lost, but
Datsuk and Lidstrom and Yzerman and Shanahan, Zetterberg, Chelios. I mean,
Schneider.
It
was unbelievable. Yeah.
Nick Lidstrom, seeing him up close and personal, what was that like?
Him and Brian Leach are by far, well, and Prongs too, but you know, I like Leachy and Lidstrom were the best defensemen I played with. Like, unbelievable.
Now, what are you see like similarities between the two of them, or is it just their different style of game? They're great in their own right.
Yeah, just great in their own right. Like, you know, Leachy being so dynamic and so quick, and I mean, that was at the end of his career. And Lidstrom, another guy, just could bring the pace of the play down to nothing, down to a standstill, and he was just so smart and just make every play was the right play. Yeah.
I gotta ask you, Mike Babcock. Any good stories about him? Obviously, he's had good and bad runs with players.
Yeah, you know, things were going well with him. I played 16 games with them, and I was with Stefan Cronwell, and Croner and I played really well together, and I think we only got scored on maybe once or twice in those 16 games, and yeah, I was just getting ready for playoffs, and then out of the blue, I came in for the first practice before playoffs, and I was scratched out of the lineup, and they brought an NHL guy into the lineup, and so I was pretty shocked by that. A few other guys were shocked, and yes, and he never once pulled me aside and say, hey, like, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, which I thought was kind of chicken shit, but you know, I just left. I didn't want to be a burden on the team, and I just, you know, I was okay, well, whatever, and never got in the lineup that first playoff series. And we were playing Edmonton, and I think I told Ken Holland this after the series. I said, you know, there was only one guy who wanted to beat the Oilers as much as, like, there was nobody that wanted to beat them as bad as I did. And yeah, they never got me in the lineup, and we lost in 6 games.
Not even an assistant came up to you or anything, like, hey, you know, you're a 12-year vet in the NHL, where this is what's going on?
Yeah, no, it was kind of funny, but yeah, whatever. I remember Jason Woolley, he got scratched too, and he was like, I'm more mad that you're not playing than I'm not playing. So I mean, that, you know, that was pretty big of wolves to say, and yeah, just nobody said a thing. And so, oh well.
I even feel like a guy like Yzerman, you know, a captain like him would have.
Yeah, I thought he would have
questioned.
Yeah, and he might have. I don't recall him saying anything, but you know, he was a great captain though. And I have a good Steve Yzerman story, and I enjoy telling this one. When I landed from Pittsburgh to Detroit, there was a voicemail on my phone, and it was Stevie Y, and he's saying, hey, welcome to the team. You know, I understand you had a baby girl, you know, congratulations. I've got a couple of myself, and is there anything you need before practice tomorrow? Let me know. Call me. Here's my number. If not, I'll just see you tomorrow. And I still remember vividly the voicemail. And I was like, you know, that's something that has really stood out to me, and what a great captain he was. Just that simple phone call welcoming me to the team. I don't think a lot of guys do that. And I've told guys, captains, that story. I mean, you want to be a leader, like, this is what Stevie Y did for me. And I actually ran into Stevie in a Tampa morning skate. I was in Tampa with some friends, and he was there with the video coach, and I was chatting him how the team was doing, and he's like, yeah, we're just talking about leadership. And So I told the video coach, I said, well, here's the story I got for this guy. And I told the video coach, no, it wasn't a video coach. It was an assistant coach or something. I told him the story about what Stevie did. And I said, that was great leadership on Stevie. So
that's cool. That's cool. Jacob Trouba was just named the Rangers captain this last offseason, and they said that that's one of the things that he did even before he was a captain. He was reaching out to guys like, hey, I know it's a new city, and his wife was very big on helping out the wives and reaching out to them. And, New York's, as you played there, New York's a tough place to play. You practice up in Westchester, but your games are in the city. So it's a very, where do you live? What do you do? It's a lot of question marks when you get there.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. No, it was, back when I played, there was hardly anybody living downtown. But then it seemed like it was changing latter part of when I was there was a few more guys downtown, but then I think now pretty much everybody lives downtown, I would think.
Yeah, it was, like the 94 range, like all those guys like Messier and Leach, all those guys were living downtown during that time period. And then I think as they got older and had kids and families, they all moved up to the Rye area. And then now there's a lot of young guys on the team, so I'm sure they're all down in the city. They're probably all in the party areas.
Yeah. The cost of everything. I remember going to Eric's house, and he told me he was paying $21,000 a month in rent, and I was just like, what? It's just like jaw dropping. I was like, holy crap.
Where was he living?
He had a like an old brownstone. I'm not even sure what part of the city it was, but he had a beautiful place.
$21,000 a month.
Yeah, I was like, holy crap.
Oh man, how do you go to other Lindros stories?
I hated playing against that guy. He was so big and strong and phenomenal player. And Tampa and Philly, we had a rivalry, kind of that playoff series kind of created a rivalry after that. So hated playing against them. But good teammate. And again, you don't realize the work ethic these superstars have until you play with them. He'd be on the ice before everybody and shooting pucks and just doing everything, everything that he had to do to keep his game up to the level that he wanted to. Unfortunately, he had slowed down with those concussions, but man, what a force he was. Yeah, phenomenal.
He was still good with the Rangers. And he had concussion issues, but he was still good.
Oh yeah,
he had 2 30-goal seasons with the Rangers still.
Yeah. Oh no, he was a great player. Yeah.
You're sorry. Okay. No, you good. Go on.
Well, I remember getting hit by him. He put me on, broke me in half over the bench one time.
What was the hardest hit you took? Who had the hardest hit?
Oh, well, that was one of the hardest hits. I still remember that. I think I ripped my abdominal at that time. And remember Steve Thomas got me with my head down one time. And I actually got hit in Germany once. Guy, a dirty hit, slammed my head against the glass in Germany. That wasn't very fun. But being my size, I didn't get hit like big hits. Steve Webb crushed me in the playoffs one year, separated my shoulder. I was kind of smart enough to not get smoked, and my vision on the ice always helped me. I always knew where guys were. So you watch the guys nowadays, and you're like, didn't you see that guy coming? Right? They don't seem to have the vision that they did back when I played.
There's a lot more headhunters back in your day, though. There's not a lot of guys really going for heads.
You had to have your head up. You had to have your head up, or you'd get killed.
Yeah, Ty Domi running around the ice back in the day.
Yeah. Now they just got their heads down and stick handling 100 miles an hour. But yeah, well, you get hit hard, you're going to get into a fight, so nobody hits anybody hard.
Every time, again, Jacob Trouba, every time he hits a guy, he's got to drop the gloves and fight someone.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Against your Flames out there, he had to fight 2 guys a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I know.
2 big hits, 2 fights.
Yeah, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but that's the way it's turned.
And it's demoralizing because not only is he hitting these guys and crushing them, he's then beating up the guy afterwards. So it's like a double hit.
Yeah, I know. And he's so good at hitting, right? Mm-hmm. He shouldn't have to fight. He just skate away. But I know as being the captain, he doesn't want to do that. It'd be nice to have them have a Ryan Reeves back. I don't know why they ever traded him, but
Well, he was in and out of the lineup, and they needed some cap space because they need to do the Kane trade and everything else, but they needed some cap space for later on in the year. They're
Right.
hoping, I think Barkley Goodrow kind of takes up that kind of more physical role, I think.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
I think that's the hope. Or I mean, he's stepped up a couple times this year in fights, but really, when you look at the playoffs, I mean, New Jersey, they're gonna play the Devils most likely. They don't have really a physical guy that's gonna be fighting guys.
Right.
And then Carolina, they don't have any physical guys that are gonna be fighting guys. So you need to have tougher guys in the lineup, but not, unless you play Tampa in the conference finals, where you got Pat Maroon running around trying to kill people.
Yeah.
There's not too many teams that have those kind of guys you got to worry about.
Yeah, true. And that's the difference between the regular season and the playoffs. And that's where managers have a tough time managing. Okay, what kind of team you have to have a different team to win in the regular season. They have to have another different team in the playoffs to win in the playoffs. And trying to manage that, have the right mix is hard.
Well, those years in Toronto, you guys were in the playoffs every year making runs. I mean, those teams that you had there had a great mix of skill and toughness, though.
100%. Yeah, for sure.
Your last year in Germany, you played overseas. What led to that jumping overseas? Is that something you always wanted to do, or did it kind of fall into your lap?
Yeah, I loved Europe. I was there 3 times for the World Championships, and I'm just like, you know what? Let's just go over there and see what it's all about and play 1 year. My wife had never been to Europe, so she was up for it, and we just went and enjoyed the year and got travel as much as we could and took advantage of being over there and saw a lot of the different countries.
And you turned into Bob Probert over there. You had 190 penalty minutes in 48 games. What the hell are you doing?
Oh man! So being the biggest guy on the ice, you just have this huge target on your back, and every hit. Talking about hard hits, like every time you hit somebody and you hit them hard, it was a 2 and a 10. 2 minutes for head contact and a 10-minute automatic 10-minute misconduct. So I don't know how many 2 and 10s I had. There was a lot though, but oh man,
well, what are you hitting, like 5'10"? You're 6'5"?
6'5", yeah.
So I mean, you're hitting a guy that's
it doesn't matter what size the guy was. It was a hit to the head, too hard. You're hitting a guy too hard, it's an automatic 2 and 10.
So
I did punch a guy out there once when he smoked my head against a glass. I was concussed, and I one punched him and broke his nose and got kicked out of that game. So that was a good 20 minutes right there of penalties. But that was really the only time I did anything that was, severe. So.
Oh man, yeah. Brandon Prost was on the show, and he played in Germany because of the worst refereeing in the world.
Oh.
He said the league is unbelievable. The fans are unbelievable. The gameplay is good, but he said the refs are just awful.
So bad. So bad. Like I've seen minor hockey refs way better than those guys. The one time we were playing a game, and they had video back then for goals and no goals, right? So the other team takes a shot on our net. No, sorry, we took a shot on their net. It hit the crossbar and went out, and the ref blows whistle, and he goes, "Okay," and he had this sign and makes a square. He's like, "I'm going to the video." So he goes to penalty box, and we're like, it didn't even go in. Like, so we're getting ready just to face off again, and he's sitting in the penalty box, and he's sitting there. 5 minutes goes by. We start skating around, trying to stay loose. 10 minutes goes by. He comes out. "You guys go back to your room. We still haven't figured this out yet." So we're like, what the hell? So we go back to our dressing room. We sat there for another 10 to 15 minutes. And finally they came in and said, they can't decide whether it was in or not. They can't see the video. So they're saying no goal, and we're going to start again. And we're like, what the hell? This was like a half an hour. We knew it didn't go in. And it was kind of like a VHS. I guess it would end up being like a VHS beta thing. Like the video.
Like what soccer uses now, right?
They couldn't play it on the monitor that the ref had. I don't know. It was some disaster, but it was so bad. It was so terrible. My last game, and Todd Simpson, who played with the Flames and played a bunch of years in the NHL, he was my neighbor. And he was playing in Hanover and I was in Hamburg. And we both ended up our careers both of us got penalties in overtime. They scored. It was the same ref gave us 2 penalties. So they scored, eliminated us. I was in the penalty box, and I had this white towel And I was like, I wanted to punch the ref. So this guy was so bad, and I wanted to punch him. And I'm like, that would be a good way to end my career. Just punch a ref and get suspended. Fortunately, I didn't. And then 2 days later, Todd's in Hanover, same thing. He gets called in overtime. They score. They eliminate him. Well, he comes on the penalty box with this other guy, and they swarm the ref.
They got him for you.
Yeah, and I'm watching it on German TV, and they're bumping him and everything. Well, Todd ends up getting suspended, and but it was the same damn ref. He was just terrible. He was an accountant during the day and ref at night. It was so bad.
Hopefully, it wasn't bad with your money as much as he was bad with his calls. You played for Team Canada 3 times in World Championships, 2-time gold medal winner, by the way. How special is that to wear your country's emblem on your jersey?
That was the highlight of my career. Other than scoring that overtime goal, that was the highlight. Playing for Team Canada and winning the 2 golds was pretty proud moment for myself and my family, and awesome teams I played with some great players on those teams, and just lucky to be part of it.
Any guys on the teams really stand out to you? Is there any guy that you're like, wow, I never played with them, but like playing there, you saw like how special they were?
Well, Rob Blake was one guy who I never got to play with, in my career. 97, he would just talk about killing guys. Like he hit guys so hard over there. Like those guys had no idea what was coming. He had this, we call it the ass check, and he had the ability to spin himself around and pretty much hit the guy with his ass, and he crushed these European kids. And automatic penalty. He wouldn't get a 10, but he would get 2 or 4 minutes for hitting. It was hitting too hard. Like they didn't know how to call it. They just like, what the hell? Like nobody had seen that before. But playing with him was a lot of fun. And Jerome McGinlow, that was in 97 for his first year he played. It was cool to see how good he was going to be. And just some not a ton of superstars, but just some really good, solid NHL guys that played on those teams.
What was your favorite city on the road to go to?
I gotta say, New York was one of my right up there. I mean, I love playing MSG. Love the vibe. It's like there's nothing better than Christmas time in New York, and just a magical event. And someday I'll take my kids there and see that, because it's awesome. But Chicago is always fun going to. Any of the Canadian cities when I played. When I played like in Tampa, going into any Canadian city was always a lot of fun as well.
Were you a prankster at all?
Not overly, no.
So what's the best prank you've seen pulled on someone?
Well, so I listened to your Dan Lacouture, and you asked them that question, and I got pranked really bad by Marc Bergevin. And I don't know if you know Berge, but Berge is maybe the funniest guy I've ever met, ever played with. And he pranked me one time. We were in Philadelphia, and we just had a practice day, and we didn't get a wake-up call. We had practice early in the morning for some reason. We didn't get a wake-up call, and we almost missed the team bus. We didn't get a breakfast. Just made the bus and got to practice on time. But he was giving me the gears, because I was the young guy. I was the rookie. I had to make the phone call to the front desk to get a wake-up call. Like we didn't have cell phones back then, right? And so he's like, make sure you get a call. I'm like, yeah. So I called down that night, and next thing you know, he's waking me up. Crosser, we didn't get a phone call again. And we had morning skate. And I'm like, what? And I look at the clock, and it said 10 to 10, right? And our bus is at 10 o'clock. And I'm like, I was still tired, so I should have known better. And I'm slowly getting dressed, and he's yelling at me, come on, hurry. And so the elevator is literally right outside of our door. So we go out the door, go in the elevator, and he's like, "Oh, damn, my glasses. I forgot my glasses." And I said, "I'll hold the elevator for you." He's like, "No, no, no, go down and make sure the bus doesn't leave." So I go down to the lobby, and I'm walking through the lobby, and there's nobody in the lobby. It was really quiet. And I go out, the bus isn't there, and I go to the front desk. I said, "We missed our bus. You're supposed to get second day in a row we didn't get a wake-up call." And the guy's like, "Oh, what room?" And I'm telling him I'm in my room. And he's like, "Yeah, we have you here, 9 o'clock, wake up call." And I'm like, "Yeah, we didn't get called." He's like, "Well," he goes, "it's only 8." It was 8 in the morning. So I'm like, "Oh my God, that bastard." So I go back up, and Burge is in bed. He's just giggling. He's laughing so hard. And yeah, he got me big time that. And so that was, I felt like a real bozo. But the next day I woke up before him, and I got right into his ear, and I yelled "Burge" as loud as I could, just scare the crap out of him. And that's all I could think of was getting him back. But
Your own wake up call.
yeah. But he got me good.
That's a good one. What's your worst travel story?
Worst travel story. Well, that was definitely in the minors. We had a lot of bad travel stories in the minors when you're playing 3 games in 3 nights out of Atlanta, and you're flying commercial, and oh man, there was a lot of early mornings and a lot of missed connections. And the one time we were flying through Kansas. We had a layover in Kansas City, but it wasn't really a layover. The plane just landed, parked, and let the new people in the plane, and then we took off again. And we were all starving. We'd left real early from wherever we started from, so not a lot of us had breakfast. We just got to the airport, got on the plane, and so we're like, "Hey, do we have time to get off the plane, get some food, and come back?" We had a 30-minute. We were going to be 30 minutes at the gate, and like, "Yeah, let's do it," because we're so hungry. So like 8 of us ran to the food court, get our food, come back. The plane is gone. The plane left us. And we're like, "What the?" Like, we had seats on there. They filled our seats with other people and took off. And so we're all in the Kansas. There's 8 of us sitting at the Kansas City airport, and the plane is gone. I can't remember where the plane had gone to. And we're like, "What the hell do we do now?" And like, again, no cell phones back then, right? So fortunately, I got on the payphone and called the Atlanta Knights office to find out what hotel we were at, and coordinating new flights. And yeah, the coach wasn't a very happy guy on that one, but we didn't manage to get back. Fortunately, there was another flight. I think later in the day, it was like a 4-hour layover. We got another flight. And
The Atlanta Knights have to forfeit due to half the team needing to get a food court. Only 11 guys show up on the plane.
Yeah, exactly.
Last question before I let you go. Is there a favorite moment that sticks out to you from your career?
Yeah, well, we talked about those moments. That overtime goal was a moment. Winning the World Championships, getting drafted was a neat moment. And having my daughter in Pittsburgh. And to add to that story, that first game in Detroit, my very first shift, I scored a goal. I was on the ice for 5 seconds. I jumped over the boards, skated down the ice, and Robert Lang passed me the puck, and I one-timed it in the net. And I have that clip, and the guys, the play-by-play guys and the color guys are like, "Oh, that was for your daughter Ayla, Cory," and that was pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's dad strength right there, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it was just one of those. It was a crazy week I had. Yeah.
Well, Cory, thanks so much for joining us this week, and hopefully we'll get you back on in the future.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Kyle.
Thank you so much to Cory Cross for joining us. What an awesome guy, awesome conversation. He's a guy who didn't have the longest Rangers career, but I remember I really liked him in a short time with the Rangers, and obviously he's a guy that I watched with the Edmonton and Toronto and knew of him with Tampa. So I can't thank him enough for joining us. Just a really solid defenseman from his day, and I've watched the highlight of his game-winning goal, and it's a very cool call there by the Maple Leafs announcer. But yeah, great guy. Thank you so much to him for coming on, taking time out of his very busy schedule to join us, and I really appreciate that. And that does it for episode 123 of the Broadway Hat Podcast. Make sure you are subscribed to this show on Apple Podcasts. And while you're subscribing, leave us a 5-star review there. Every 5-star review the show does receive $1 is donated to Alex's Lemonade Foundation. So please take one moment every day. Go on there, leave us a 5-star review, and help an amazing cause fight pediatric cancer. Please follow the show on Spotify and leave us a 5-star review there as well. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts. You can find us on Amazon Music, Pandora, Spreaker, Google Podcasts, you name it, you can find us there. Make sure you're also subscribed to the show on social media as well. You can find us at the Broadway Hat Podcast on both Facebook and Instagram. You can find us on Twitter at Broadway Hat Pod. You can find my personal Twitter account at KHallNY for all new Granger updates. And make sure you go and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well at the Broadway Hat Podcast, where we have full episodes, clips of the show, just some cool content there. So make sure you go follow us on YouTube as well. And that does it. We'll see you next week.